Hi everyone, welcome back to the Beyond the Track Sports Business Unfiltered, where we explore the careers, systems, and ideas that exist beyond the playing field. So far, we have spoken about large sporting events, inclusion programs, and strategic partnerships. Today, we are entering a different but extremely important part of the sports industry, the world of athlete representation, sports law, and how rights, contracts, and culture shape an athlete's journey. Today, I am excited to welcome Mrs. Pragati. Pragati is a qualified lawyer and India's first female FIFA licensed football agent. She works at the intersection of sport, law, and culture, advising athletes on contracts and rights and regulatory processes. She's also the co founder of the Hub of Culture, which is India's first sports marketing and management firm focused on women's sport, athlete empowerment, and cultural development. She's the founder of Equal Play Collective, an inclusive multi sport community that promotes participation, access, and movement for people of all levels. And what makes Pragati's journey especially interesting is that she's not only a lawyer and advisor, but also an active footballer, which gives her a player first perspective on everything she builds. So, thank you so much for joining us today and welcome to this show. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you for a very nice introduction. I'm good. How are you?
I'm glad to hear that you're doing good, and thank you for asking. I'm also doing good. So, your journey combines law, football, entrepreneurship, and community building, which is quite unique. So, if you had to describe your journey so far in one sentence, what would it be?
In one sentence, I would say be resilient and work towards what you want to achieve. Uh, be it law, be it playing a sport, or be it switching careers. All of these have been major decisions which are not very traditionally, encouraged in uh, by our parents. Sport in general is a very niche career to choose. So yeah, that's what I would like to put it in a way, that be resilient, and if you want to do something, go for it.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting, and I love your one sentence. So, let's begin with our interview questions. Uh,
Sure.
Most people don't really understand what a FIFA licensed agent does. So they often think it's just about transfers or negotiations. But from your experience, what is the real role of a licensed agent and how does this role fit into the business and governance of sport?
So like you mentioned, in the introduction, that it's a very athlete first approach. So firstly, being an athlete manager comes, with that approach, that whichever athlete or coach you represent, it's not just when you sign a contract, when you are going through a transfer or getting an employment, but it's also post that. Let's say you've signed with a club and you started playing for that team, right? Let's say a player has signed for Barcelona, for example. Then you also need to make sure, okay, whether they are getting their payments on time. And in case there are some concerns, for example, between the coach and the team, performance related or match time related, you also act as a third person barrier. Of course, the teams have their own way of communications, but sometimes coaches also share feedback, that, okay, this is something that, she needs to work on, or he needs to work on. So it's providing a one stop for the entire ecosystem, where it's not just a legal perspective, but also understanding, being uh, someone who can take that headache off of that player, where they can just focus on the sport, and everything else, for example, be it sponsorships or social media deals that, come in. Because of course, now, apart from sport, that is also a big part of generating revenue for yourself, or being a just having a career off the pitch, right? So these are the aspects as well which an agent or a manager takes care of, which are sponsorship, social media deals, and sometimes, if they have that rapport with the coaches, where they also act as that third middle cushion. between having that feedback. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very helpful way to look at it, especially also like the idea that the role is ongoing and not just in one moment. And thank you
Yeah.
for explaining how the legal understanding becomes so important for athletes early on as well.
Yeah, because sometimes it happens that that athletes have not been paid on time. I mean, in India, it is very common, especially in women's football. Big clubs will still honor their contracts, but a lot of athletes I have spoken to personally have not received their salaries for over a year or two.
Mm.
In that case, that's when also we help them, file their claims with the club and then with the respective jurisdiction, be it AIFF or yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice that you helped them with it.
Hmm.
Let's move on to the next question. So many young athletes, they sign contracts without fully understanding their rights, obligations, or long-term consequences. How important is legal awareness in sport, and what kinds of risks do athletes face when they don't have proper representation or advice, for example?
Like I just mentioned before this, right? It could start from your side. It could also, um, you know, uh, insurance. Like these are some parts of contracts that you need to be sure, like cognizant of. But sometimes it is such a pressure moment that okay, you need to read these documents and give it to me by tomorrow. Like a lot of time, it's a very short time turnaround period, so they don't really have too much window for negotiation. Very few players get the opportunity to even try to get a lot of clauses changed because they're not at the higher bargaining position, right? It's a very traditional take it or leave it. But we as lawyers, we as agents, what we advise not just our clients but in general athletes is be mindful of your insurance clause, be mindful of your release clauses, be mindful of your payment clauses, be mindful of your termination, and how they can dismiss you from a club, be it what constitutes as misconduct. And so these are few aspects that we try to educate from our end, that if you can please have a look, because we can't be with players 24/7,
Mhm.
right? We of course try to communicate with them, whoever we work with. We make sure that their contracts are taken care of, because that was the biggest gap that we're trying to provide.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's really nice that you help them with making decisions and just thinking and explaining it to them, because often people also just look at the terms and conditions and not really read carefully through it. So, yeah.
Yeah, also sometimes they don't even understand it. Like for example, in India, they don't. Not most of them come from a great educational background. They've probably had to make a choice between pursuing a sport or pursuing their education, right? So they might not even understand the clauses half the time.
Yeah.
That's the learning that I learned in these years, that they don't even have the knowledge to understand the terms. So they really need some external help who can explain to them what these terms actually mean. And like imagine being like, we're in 2026 right now, and me being the only woman eh, right, as an agent in India. So that also brings a big gap. It sounds nice on paper, but it also brings about a big gap that exists in the industry. So that's something, hopefully there's more awareness and more education with the athletes about their rights. That's pretty crucial.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And you work deeply in women's sport, which for a long time has not been given the same professional structure as men's sport. So, from your perspective, how is women's sport evolving as an industry, and what systems are still missing to make it truly sustainable?
Right now, there's definitely a lot of visibility that's being given. That's also due to the performance of these athletes, which is bringing about the visibility which is being given to them. It's not come easy. It's come after a lot of fighting for that visibility that they deserve, right? But
Yeah.
still, with more visibility, there's still that angle of safety. Like, for example, on digital, like social media, right? The more exposure you have, you also have people who are congratulating you and sending you positive, encouraging comments, but you also expose yourself to negative comments and trolling. So that's also, and like, I've seen players, foreign players who come to India getting like racist comments also in their comments, and they probably more might not even realize because it's a regional language that they are saying it in. So these things still exist. Apart from that, the grassroots is where, where if you don't build a foundation in the grassroots, it won't survive in a long term.
Mhm.
Right now, the attention is very at an elite high level, but the long term results, which you say sustainable, right? How do you make it in a futuristic way? That is when you start working, focusing on the grassroots, make sure the foundation is strong. Make sure when you go to a playground, you don't just see boys playing, you also see equal number of girls playing.
Yeah.
Like, that's where you start at the bottom. In schools, you also encourage girls equally as much as you encourage boys to play a sport. So that's the kind of a mindset change also that needs to come from the bottom of the pyramid.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree with the comments part. There's also that you get negative comments sometimes if you post on social media, but then you still want that recognition. And yeah. So, through the initiatives like the Equal Play Collective and the Hub of Culture, you focus a lot on participation, movement, and community. From a business point of view, how do communities and culture based initiatives become structured, scalable, and impactful within the sports ecosystem?
With Equal Play Collective, it's been 2.5 years of journey right now. And honestly, it's been purely learning on the job while doing it. Like, it didn't even start with the idea of, oh, I want to start a community. I just wanted a group, like a group of 20 people to play football with. And it just grew through word of mouth, and it is what it is right now. Sustainably, like, what we've done is we've made sure that, if someone is coming and playing with us, it doesn't really hit their pocket. Like, we don't want to make them pay a very exorbitant amount for
Yeah.
something which, if they would have gone on their own, they would have had, like, if I'm charging someone 500 bucks, rupees, but if you can go and on your own and pay just 200 rupees to play that game, then it won't really sustain. People won't with you. So we have to make sure it's still easy on people's pocket, and it's still something where people can commit to week on week. And it is not possible without the support of institutions also coming in. Like, we've had brands come in and provide financial aid as well for our programs, where we've
Yeah.
had young, where we trained for football. We had some underprivileged girls. We had students who couldn't pay for their sessions. So, because this is not something that we are self fund, like, it's not like I have already earned a lot of money for me to put in. So that's why, without making it a loss making venture, what we've done is we've had partners who supported our journey. And whenever we have been in need for, let's say, sponsoring a student who can't play, we've had members also come forward and foot in the bill for their training cost or ground cost. So
Yeah.
it's been a self-sustaining model as of now, where community members have stepped up and offered help, not just financially but logistically, like uh, providing help with organizing games, going for different games, getting people. So it's a very self-sustaining model. But to scale it up, you need brands, you need people to also support the idea that we're trying to get people to be healthy, to have a healthy lifestyle where they play twice, thrice a week. And that's something which is also catching up, has been catching up in India quite a bit. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I also find it really interesting how you're linking the community work to the long term impact and not just the short term outcomes. And definitely, sponsorships are really important, or like brands that invest. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, moving on to the next question, you have been involved in grassroots development, like you mentioned before, and as well as professional advisory work. So, what does it take to build real pathways for young players, especially girls from local participation to professional opportunities?
Um, over these few years of working in grassroots and trying to get, more participation across different ages, not just at the younger ages, but also in uh 20s, 30s, like across different ages, right? So the post COVID, the approach toward sport or health has been different, but before that, sport was just something you win medals in or compete. It wasn't an everyday part of a lot of our lives, right?
Yeah.
So uh yeah, so firstly, I think that mindset has changed recently, but the ratio is still very skewed when it comes to girls participation. So just giving access is not going to suddenly get more girls to play. So creating more awareness in schools, talking to parents, working in the grass at that foundational level, trying to get people to look at sport as an everyday part of their daily lifestyle and not just something that they compete in. Or that's one aspect, right? That's a culture change that needs to come where everyone's playing. You have that environment when you also see then real talent coming in. Now let's say right now you have been training for, let's say, tennis, and then you want to understand, okay, how do I go to the next level? Or you play football and you want to go to the next level. You
Yeah.
need to, so those pathways, is not something which are very organized. Like for example, in football in India, if you play well, you might not get scouted. If you have contacts, somebody might recommend you to someone that, okay, you should try, see this player. But match recordings are not really available for most of these games. Like half the state league matches are not even recorded. So how do you even identify talent as a coach or a club, right? So there's a big gap between uh, teams looking for players and players trying to get in touch with teams. So that in between there's a big gap.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. And it also sort of just raises a question about what support looks like beyond just training and competition, like you mentioned about access. So that's definitely important as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, getting more awareness, that's when, so once people are more aware of different career paths or competitions that they can be a part of or camps that they can be a part of, so that's where you get aware of more opportunities and you try to find your way up.
Yeah, definitely, because there's so many careers and we don't even know some that exist and we don't know if we are interested in it. So that's also one thing. And for young people who love sports but may not become professional athletes, what skills should they start developing if they want to work in the areas like sports law, athlete management, or like community building or sports entrepreneurship?
The first and foremost thing is, I think, having a knack of being people friendly, because it's constantly you are interacting with people, be it in an operational role or a sales role or a legal role. So there's a lot of human interaction. uh, Apart from that, skills wise, I would say, like for law, of course you need to have a legal background, but for someone who want to work in athlete management per se, like having a knack for also operations, and you also need to help get your athlete sponsorships, right? So having a sales
Yeah.
uh, point of view. So, like, studying BBA, BCom. So, there are different ways of it. Right now, what recently has been happening, like, you see a lot of sports management universities coming up. But over the years, what I've seen is mostly most of them focus on teaching the students just operational level of things that happen at events, which is great. I mean, you should also have an idea, and operations in itself is very wide, but we also need to teach skills beyond that, be it media, be it writing, be it editing, be it creative designing, or just content creation, is huge, like ideation, marketing, performance marketing. So there are it's a wide range of things that one can choose, explore, and see what fits their strengths and what drives them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also like the skills that you mentioned are really important, like the editing, writing, media, and everything. So that's also really important. And thank you for joining us today and sharing your insights. This conversation has really showed us that sports is not just about what happens on the field, it is also about the rights, the representation, and the systems and the long term thinking. So, thank you for that. And for everyone listening, I hope this episode helped you to see that there are many meaningful careers in sport beyond playing in law, management, community building, and advocacy. So, thank you for tuning in to Beyond the Track Sports Business Unfiltered. See you in the next episode.